What's up, decorator? I've already prepared the pedestal. This has been applied with 2 coats of Gesso Style Primer from HV'Art, sanded nicely to a powdery finish. And then we have 2 coats of the ceramic paint 90, which is a super gloss paint. This one is a high tint one, and I added some black, a little bit of raw umber, just to get a dark gray on this. So even though I'm going to do a black marble, as a matter of fact, I like to start with a more gray background. That way I'm going to glaze over to create the depth that a black marble has. I'm going to use 3/4 of the studio set and 1/4 of the open time. I mixed them up, then I added some black in my coloring here, so I have a nice transparent glaze. And then on my palette, I'm going to have some raw umber, I'm going to have some dioxide purple, some black, a little bit of raw sienna and yellow ochre to create a little bit of a greenish tinge. I'm going to wet the sides. I'm not doing, so that way I can do one thing at the time and I don't have a dry texture. So I want a good amount. I don't want it to be drippy, but I want to have enough material that it stays open. If it's too thin, it'll dry too fast. Instead of going up and down, I'm just giving a little bit of an angle. You know, so I'm already starting in my mind that this pedestal, the veining, will have a little bit of an angle, like a 70-degree angle, like this. Nice and even. And really make sure the edges are nice and fat as well. In the palette cup, I have the exact same glaze, same thing here. And I'm just gonna pick up some of those tonalities. So I'm gonna start with some of the black. And I'm being very generous. I'm gonna get a nice, beautiful streak of color. In this case, I'm using a fast drying acrylic. I'm using the golden So Flat. And the reason is because I want it to dry really fast. Look at this variation, a little bit of that purple here. You know, I'm picking up some of the palette, a little bit of the raw umber. Again, always picking up some of the previous color and working in beds. In other words, beds are like the bed of a river. So I have streaks of tonality. That's one thing about the Belgian blue, is that you have those kind of little strats of color. So at my black, I work it out till my brush is empty, pick up a little bit more black here, maybe a little bit of that yellow ochre, just to get something a little bit warmer here, a little bit lighter. And here I really pay attention to go right through the edge. I'm going to start hitting the surface and working very directionally like this, all over to the bottom, overlapping, going up, opening the background a little bit, working right to the edge. And I'm melting a little bit of those tonality, you know, so if I press hard on the Chiqueteur, then I have a very nice open fragments. If I go very light, I get something very tiny and dented. And I like to work with both things. But again, you see, I'm not working like this all over the place. I'm working in the direction of my first beds, as they known, or strats. I don't need to wipe off the brush. Actually, I'm picking up all the other colors. If I want a little bit more of the background, I press harder on the brush. And I keep on rotating a little bit. Now, I'm not rotating like this. I'm rotating when I'm in the air. So slow motion, rotate, down, rotate, down, rotate, down, rotate. So I'm always hitting the surface with a different part of the brush. The great thing about the Chiqueteur, as opposed to a sponge, is that every time you hit the surface, you have a different strike, a different pattern. Just a first up and down, just to knock it down just a little bit. I don't really need something super smooth. That's not what I want. I want to preserve some of those texture, so I don't smooth everywhere. And I'm just going to do the same thing, but this time maybe a little bit of an 8 motion. What I'm doing is I'm getting rid of the streaks that were left with the oil badger. And again, I don't want to overblend. I'm not a big proponent of blending. I want to preserve those beautiful background, you know, some of those little opening like this, almost like just like watermarks. gonna wipe off here this little edge. That's why I wet this down. There's no tape. What I love is I'm getting some beautiful streaks here, some dark, some light, a little bit of yellow green coming through, a little bit of the purple. You see at this angle goes this way, right? This edge would actually go the opposite direction. All glaze end up here, so I'll have a vein going through here and it'll come back up here. Again, just for effect, it works really beautifully. So much faster with a little roller. So again, you see what I'm conscious here to sort of pick up, see that dark here that comes through here. I'm picking it up here again. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that. You can see a little bit of ochre coming through here on the back side here. So do a little bit of that. And a little bit of that purple. Now it doesn't have to match 100%, you shouldn't worry too much about it, but what's important is that I'm getting that streak here. And therefore, when I come back in here, the back side here should match the front side, okay? With my oil badger up and down. There we go. Still able to melt both edges together. I'll do the other side. One thing I'm going to check is my edges. Just make sure there's no buildup. I need to do the top. So I got to be very careful here. I'm almost going to stay a little bit away from the edge. Wait till the roller is almost empty to go right to the edge. So I don't want to create a buildup. So here I'm just going to be a bit non-directional because this is what we call a counter pass. So if you have bed this way, this will be, if you cut a salami, you just get a little texture. You don't get linear vein. There'll be some vein, don't worry about it. But right now I don't want to put something that has any kind of direction. And that's why I'm adding my colors a bit more this way rather than bed. So I'm just dealing right away with the edges. Beautiful. So what we did yesterday was the different glazing of our gray background. You can see now it's dry. You can see all those little slight mottling or differences in the background. That's greatly going to help us create a beautiful veined marble. I will give it a little polishing. It's already been done with 1000. Just get rid of whatever little hair, little problem you may have. And if you burn through, well, that's not a problem. You can always touch up or place a vein where you burn through. Better do it now than when it's completely dry and you burn right through. And then with the tack cloth, I'm gonna just remove that fuzz. You can also use a vacuum cleaner, that works well, just to get everything completely nice and clean and straight.